Good morning, UCG. Beautiful morning in north central Florida. Good to see you all. I told Andy a few moments ago where I'm not as skilled as the ministers up here, so I'll do my best. So I have the honor of the good morning and the welcome and a few announcements. So there's many announcements, but I'll cover a few of them. I wrote down this note because we describe ourselves as open and affirming, and then I wrote, well, we can also describe ourselves as an all-embracing community. I like that. All-embracing. So, of course, today we will continue with our monthly theme, the Forgotten Bookshelf, and we are the Board of Parish Ministry. My name is Alberto, for those of you that don't know me. So we have the privilege today of presenting 3 stories and plus the other context of the service that we have composed for you today. I also wrote this note to myself. I like this notion of forgotten bookshelf, but I'm going to add today is also the remembered bookshelf. We have 3 stories of course, books or stories remembered by 3 of our board members. Okay, so here, I will do my best with some of these announcements. Am I on the mic here? Okay, so next Sunday, the 19th, we're welcoming new members. Or excuse me, not next Sunday, June 19th. Please join us at UCG Room 101 on Thursday, June 2nd at 5:30 in Reimer Hall. That will be for new members. There will be light refreshments and childcare. The newly elected members of the church council will gather on, let's see, no, that's an old announcement. This is May 5th. Is it supposed to be June 5th? Yeah, June 5th. Okay. 5:30 to 7:30, Reimer Hall. Lively Arts Concert, June 5th, 2 p.m. here. That's a Sunday. Camp UCG for youngsters, pre-K to 6K, July 25 to 29. Of course, these are all in the newsletter if we receive that in the email and the paper form. Okay, let's see. Andy handed me a note here. We'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the volunteers who assisted with the hosting this past week. The Family Promise Committee cordially invites all who helped to what? Can't quite read your... Oh, First Magnitude, okay. Somebody's already tuned in there. So this Wednesday, 7 p.m. to celebrate Volunteer Appreciation with beverages. Hope you can join us. Also, most of you probably noticed there's a blood mobile today out front. As I was thinking beyond simple welcoming and of course in our prayers today, Pam will address some of the more specific events going on in our society and beyond. I'm not going to make any specific comments there. I did find what's called a UNICEF flagship report, UNICEF, May 20, 2022, for 2021. In nearly every part of the world, be it rich or poor, mental health conditions and the lack of caring responses cause significant suffering for our children and young people. That's a worldwide assessment by UNICEF. I'm not going to read much more of that other than despite all this knowledge we know of the difficulties of children, most governments and societies are investing far too little in promoting, protecting, and caring for the mental health of children and young people. One statistic, suicide is the fourth leading cause among 15 to 19-year-olds. I was quite shocked by that. Every year, almost 46,000 children between the ages of 10 and 19 take their own lives. I thought, should I include this in the announcement? And so I will follow these comments with, we know in our life, in our human life, that there's great joy, there's great beauty. We also know there's great tragedy, there's great pain. And we somehow find a way to live with both parts of that spectrum. I'm going to close with a 4-line verse from a Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, from his book, a book of poetry, Call Me By My True Names. So I'll read simply 4 lines of a verse. This verse is actually from the poem that's the title of the book, Call Me By My True Names. And Thich Nhat Hanh wrote this poem during the height, in 1978, during the height of the refugee boat people attempting to escape the repressive communist regime. Another very tragic mark in our history. Okay, so I will read this 4-line verse. I will invite our tubular bell here 3 times for a moment of pause, and then we'll move along in our service. I will read this twice. My joy is like spring so warm. It makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the 4 oceans. So I'll read that a second time. My joy is like spring so warm. It makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the 4 oceans.
For our call to worship, you'll find it in your bulletin. It is responsive, and I will lead in, and then I'll invite you to stand for our opening song, Simple Gifts. In this place, heartbeat this morning. Dispel our stupor. Open the ears of our spirits. I invite you to stand as you are able or rise in spirit for number 63, Simple Gifts.
I invite the children to join me on the steps for the children's story. Okay, very good. Hi. Well, good morning. I don't know if I'm mic'd. Yeah, I guess I am mic'd. This is good. So we've got the story up here, and I'm a high school teacher, so I don't have a lot of experience holding books really well, but I'll do the best I can. So this story is about kind of the theme of our service, which is the fact that imagination can help us when we're having a hard time. And books are part of that. So it's called First Tomato, and it's by Rosemary Wells. Claire ate only 3 spoons of cornflakes for breakfast. On the way to school, her shoes filled with snow. By 11 in the morning, math had been going on for 2 hours. Lunch was Claire's least favorite, bologna sandwiches. At playtime, Claire was the only girl not able to do a cartwheel. Once again, the bus was late. Claire needs a visit to the bunny planet. Far beyond the moon and stars, 20 light years south of Mars, spins the gentle bunny planet, and the bunny queen is Janet. Janet says to Claire, "Come in. Here's the day that should have been." I hear my mother calling when the summer wind blows. Go out in the garden in your old, old clothes. Pick me some runner beans and sugar snap peas. Find a ripe tomato and bring it to me, please. A ruby red tomato is hanging on the vine. If my mother didn't want it, the tomato would be mine. It smells of rain and steamy earth and hot June sun. In the whole tomato garden, it's the only ripe one. I close my eyes and breathe in its fat red smell. I wish that I could eat it now and never, never tell. But I save it for my mother without another look. I wash the beans and shell the peas and watch my mother cook. I hear my mother calling when the summer winds blow. I've made you first tomato soup because I love you so. Claire's big warm bus comes at last. Out her window, Claire sees the bunny planet near the evening star in the snowy sky. It was there all along, says Claire. So think about how books and imagination can help you when you're having a bad day. And I hope you have a great day today. Yay. Hi. And now, does anybody here have a birthday this week? You do? No? Anybody?
My birthday's coming up.
When is your birthday?
November.
November. Okay, that's a little while. Does anybody in this section have a birthday? Yes, your name? Kim. Okay. John. Anybody in this section? Okay. Megan. Kim, John, and Megan. Okay. How about and here? Drew? Ruth. Okay. Kim, John, Megan, and Ruth. How about over here in the center section? No? How about over here? Okay, Kim, John, Megan, and Ruth. Let's sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kim, John, Megan, Ruth. Happy birthday to you. All right. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
Good morning. I have our prayers for people in our community and for people further out from our community. Today, as we tell the stories of imagination and resilience, we also mourn the persisted violence in our culture and our world. So the people in our congregation that we're going to be praying for are Alan March, who's recovering from heart surgery this week, and there's a meal sign up for him outside the office. Roger Wester, as he begins the next stage of his treatment. Mary Clark with cancer. Bonnie Green, undergoing physical therapy as she continues to recover from pneumonia. Sandy Reimer, back at home after a brief hospitalization for a heart issue as she adjusts medications. Rebecca Beachy, who's recovering from an infection she got on the Appalachian Trail. And for all the families of all the dear ones, the 19 children and 2 teachers that were murdered in Uvalde, Texas on Tuesday. And for a colleague of Bromley's, a Reverend Jenny Norris Lane, who led the memorial in Texas this week and has been ministering to many of the families. There'll be a card for her on our table if you'd like to thank her for that. All right, let us pray. Dear God, please enfold these people under your wings. Give them comfort. Help them feel the love that we, your people, send to them now. Alan March, Roger Wester, Mary Clark, Bonnie Green, Sandy Reimer, Rebecca Beachy, and the families of our precious ones in Uvalde, Texas. God, hold these people up and surround them with your love. Now we will sing together, and we can stand for this, Within Our Darkest Night, number 95.
So reading on children. He said, "Your children are not your children. They are sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children are living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and she bends you with her might, that her arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as she loves the arrow that flies, so she loves also the bow that is stable.
From the Gospel according to Matthew, the disciples came up and asked Jesus, "Why do you tell stories?" He replied, "You've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works. Not everybody has this gift, this insight. It hasn't been given to them. Whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insights and understandings flow freely. But if there is no readiness, any trace of receptivity soon disappears. That's why I tell stories," said Jesus, "to create readiness, to nudge the people toward a welcome awakening. In their present state, they can stare till doomsday and not see it. Listen till they're blue in the face and not get it. Their ears are open, they don't hear a thing. Their eyes are awake, but don't see a thing. But you, he says to his disciples, have God-blessed eyes, eyes that see, and God-blessed ears, ears that hear. A lot of people, prophets and humble believers among them, would have given anything to see what you are seeing, to hear what you are hearing, but never had the chance. May our eyes and ears be blessed.
As you heard from Alberto, in this last week of the Forgotten Bookshelf Worship theme, we have a few more stories to share that were meaningful to each of us as we were growing up. My favorite book in elementary school was Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. Written a few years before her most well-known book, The Giver, Number the Stars tells the story of 10-year-old Anne-Marie Johansson, a regular girl living in Nazi-occupied Denmark in 1943. The book starts with Anna-Marie racing down the street with her best friend, Ellen Rosen, and trailed by her little sister, Kirsty, as they head home from school. When they fly around a corner, they're stopped by German soldiers who poke their book bags with guns and warn them not to run or they'll look like hoodlums. Anna-Marie and Ellen solemnly walk the rest of the way home, admitting to one another how scared they were, while little Kirsty is unfazed, even pushing one of the soldiers' hands away when he tries to pat her head. I was 9 or 10 when I read Number the Stars, but beyond that, I didn't have too much in common with Anna-Marie. She was described as having silvery blonde hair. I had brown hair. She had a younger sister who she found foolish and irritating. I had a younger brother who even then I thought was the best. She lived in a big city and spent vacations with her uncle the fisherman in a seaside village. I lived in a suburb and visited my family in the mountains of North Carolina. She was living in a time of war and fear, and I was just this sort of regular kid in the 90s. I was super shy, so the kinds of things I was worried about were having to talk to grown-ups at church or giving presentations at school. Not exactly World War II level concerns, but something about Anna-Marie's story really spoke to me. I wrote in a journal when I was a kid, which was importantly not a diary, and I found a line I wrote there in 5th grade. I think I really get caught up in books. I feel for the characters and about the characters as if they were real and were more than just what's in the book they're in. Back in Anna-Marie's story, a few weeks later, it's Rosh Hashanah, and at the synagogue, the Rosens and many others learn that the Nazis have taken lists of members of the synagogues, and they intend to arrest all the Jewish people in Denmark and relocate them. Ellen stays with the Johanssons, and with them, she takes the train to stay with Anna-Marie's uncle Henrik on the northern coast of Denmark. That evening, more people arrive at Uncle Henrik's under the guise of attending a family funeral. They even have a fake casket. These are actually more Jewish families, including Ellen's parents, who Uncle Henrik will hide in his fishing boat for a short ride to Sweden and freedom. When everyone has arrived, Uncle Henrik leaves to prepare the boat, and later, after the faux funeral, the rest of the group prepares to follow. The man coordinating the escape gives Mr. Rosen a small packet wrapped in paper, which he says is very important and must be given to Uncle Henrik. Anna-Marie's mother helps guide the group through the woods in the dark to Uncle Henrik's boat, while Anna-Marie waits with her sleeping sister, feeling more and more afraid as time passes without her mother's return. Hours later, she sees her mother sprawled on the ground outside the house. She had slipped on the way back home and twisted her ankle. As Anna-Marie helps her mother into the house, they see on the ground the very important packet, which must have fallen out of Mr. Rosen's pocket. With her mother injured, Anna-Marie is the only one who can run through the dark woods to take the packet to Uncle Henrik. Her mother hides it below a napkin at the bottom of a basket filled with bread, fruit, and cheese, and warns Anna-Marie that if she encounters any soldiers, she should pretend to be nothing more than a young girl delivering lunch to her uncle. Anna-Marie rushes through the forest, telling herself the story of Little Red Riding Hood as she goes. But just as she is approaching the sea, she's stopped by 4 soldiers and 2 menacing dogs. They tear the bread in two and feed it to the dogs. She scolds them, as her little sister would have. They remove the cheese and the apple, but still the dogs seem interested in the basket, so they dig deeper, despite Anna Marie's protests, and find the packet. When they open it, it's nothing but a handkerchief. And mocking foolish Danish women who waste their time sewing handkerchiefs, they send Anna Marie on her way. She makes it to Uncle Henrik's boat, where he receives the packet with relief and sails off. And so later, Uncle Henrik explains to her that the handkerchief was key to making sure the soldiers' dogs couldn't find the Jewish passengers if they came aboard the fishing boat. It contained a special drug, turns out that's rabbit's blood mixed with cocaine, that would lure the dogs in, then numb their senses so they couldn't smell anything on the boats at all. When they're both back at the farm, Uncle Henrik tells Anna Marie she was very brave. Brave? Anna Marie asked, surprised. No, I wasn't. I was very frightened. You risked your life. But I didn't even think about that. I was only thinking of... He interrupted her, smiling. That's all that brave means. Not thinking about the dangers, just thinking about what you must do. Of course you were frightened. I was too today, but you kept your mind on what you had to do. And I think that was my main takeaway from Number the Stars, that kids could be brave and grown-ups could be afraid, that any of us could be brave, that bravery means being afraid but taking action anyway, whether we're afraid of something big like war or violence, or something more personal like being ourselves in our day-to-day lives. If you could join in singing the hymn, I Would Be True, it's number 492 in the hymnal. You can stay seated, and Philip's going to play it through once for us first.
Good morning. One warm night, 4 children stood in front of a bakery. No one knew them. No one knew where they had come from. The baker's wife saw them first as they stood looking in the window of her store. The children, Henry, who is 14, Jessie, 12, Violet, 9, and Benny, 5, go into the bakery, buy 3 loaves of bread, and offer to wash dishes in the morning if they can sleep in the bakery that night. The baker considers this. She has some questions. "Where are your father and mother?" she asked. "They are dead," said Henry. "We have a grandfather in Greenfield, but we don't like him," said Benny. "He is our father's father, and he didn't like our mother," said Henry. "So we don't think he would like us. We are afraid he would be mean to us." "Where did you live before you came here?" asked the woman. But not one of the 4 children would tell her. That is all the backstory we get about these hungry children. Clearly, they've been through a tragedy, but Gertrude Chandler Warner's book, The Boxcar Children, isn't about that. It's about survival, resilience, and independence, creativity and effort, loyalty and love, learning to recognize and trust the people who are blessings in our lives. Now, there's an elephant in our room this morning. When we planned this service focusing on books that highlight children's courage and their sources of comfort, we didn't know that this week the world would witness a preventable mass murder in Uvalde, Texas that killed 19 children and 2 teachers. The 4th graders of Robb Elementary School showed us, once again, that children can be astonishingly brave and selfless. We know young minds can't make sense out of senseless acts, but young hearts often do tap into a divine source of healing wisdom. We know from hard experience that our country's children can survive terrible things, but that does not give us the right to keep demanding it of them. It is our duty as adults to protect them. It is our responsibility to take action to stop the slaughter of the innocents. Back to our story. In the bakery, the children overhear the woman telling her husband that she'll keep the 3 older children and put them to work, but send 5-year-old Benny to an orphanage. That night, the children slip away. On an abandoned railroad siding deep in the woods, they find an old boxcar with a stream flowing past its door. They ride out a storm inside the boxcar and decide to make it their home. Henry walks into town and gets work mowing the lawn of a kind doctor. Jessie befriends a stray dog and pulls a thorn out of its paw, and the dog joins the family. The children find the town dump and scavenge pitchers, plates, cups, spoons, and an old cook pot. They feast on blueberries from the woods and bread and milk that Henry buys with his earnings. They make beds out of pine straw. They dam the stream to make a pond where they swim. They work and play happily with no grown-ups telling them what to do. How awesome is that? The Boxcar Children was first written in 1924 and has never been out of print. The author was a Connecticut school teacher. She wrote 18 sequels, each one a mystery story that the children solve. Other authors are still writing new entries in this series today, more than 100 volumes now. I loved the book when I first read it around age 7 or 8. Bromley says her children love it too. Why do children love this story so much? The writer Gia Tolentino says it unites 2 deep desires that children rarely get to fulfill at the same time: the longing to be free and the longing to be good. This is not just a child's wish. We adults often ask the divine force to help us balance these 2 deep yearnings, to be free and to be good. The life that Henry, Jessie, Violet, and Benny create seems very last century in some ways. It's a nuclear, binary, waspy family where Henry, the dad, works to make money, Jessie, the mom, keeps house, and the children work for fun. Really? A modern writer might tell the story differently, but the book conveys timeless truths. Children thrive on responsibility. They use their imaginations to create beautiful and useful things out of other people's junk. They love beauty. They believe in loyalty and kindness. They want to draw the thorn out of the wounded puppy's paw. The Boxcar Children don't really live in an adult-free world. There's Dr. Moore, who manages to give Henry new work to do every day. Dr. Moore has a cook who often sends Henry home with a surprisingly big batch of fresh-baked cookies. It turns out Dr. Moore has followed Henry home and knows the score. He knows the children are on their own living in a boxcar, but he sees that they're okay for now. So he figures out ways to help them. Henry, the cherry trees in the orchard are loaded with fruit. Do you know any other children who would like to help pick them and get paid for it? Dr. Moore engineers a meeting between Henry and his grandfather. He helps the grandfather and the children learn to trust one another. Only then is the family united. The children choose to move in with their grandfather, who has a stream and a patch of woods at the bottom of his garden. There he makes a place for their beloved boxcar. Dr. Moore is in effect the children's guardian angel, not controlling them, but watching over them, encouraging them, opening doors for them. I identified with the Boxcar Children because I was, let's say, underparented. But I had guardian angels who saved my life, my inner life. They taught me how to strive to balance freedom and goodness. I still have angels, physical ones and metaphysical ones, in my life today. I think of them as messengers and bringers of divine love. I believe we all have them. My prayer today is the same one we shared at the beginning of this service, that all children, and especially the survivors of terrible losses, know that they have the opportunity to be free and to be good, know they are surrounded by angels and lifted up by love. Let's sing together, Angels Watching Over Me, number 5 in the songbook.
When I was very young, my reading choices ran to fairy tales. I loved imagining hidden worlds, hidden small worlds. I remember one story in particular in which a little girl was standing on her back stoop looking out at the yard. All of a sudden, she could see an opening under a bush. She went down to it and crawled into the opening. This is similar to what Alice in Wonderland did. and she entered an entirely different universe. I think it's interesting for all of us to look back and think about the books that affected us as children, and to think about why. What chord was struck in us? Along these lines, when I was about 11, I found another genre. I found A Tree Grows in Brooklyn on a relative's bookshelf. It really was not a child's book, but I took it and read it. It's an autobiographical novel written in 1940 by Betty, or the 40s, I'm not sure which year, by Betty Smith. It's told from the viewpoint of a child, Francie Nolan, born in 1900 in the tenement slums of Brooklyn, New York. This is no fairy tale. Instead, this book describes details of tenement life for newly arrived Irish and German immigrants. This is about a father's alcoholism and its effect on his family. It's about very real dangers to the children in the tenement hallways and even in the candy store. But it's also about resourcefulness and about the love of extended family. It's about the coping mechanisms of the mother and of the children. It's about survival. I think at age 11, I needed this encouragement. I, too, was growing up in dire circumstances. When I was 5 years old, my parents divorced. About a year later, my mother remarried. Her new husband was the polar opposite of my father. I then entered a 9-year period of poverty and a violent and abusive environment at home. When the UCG theme of forgotten books first started, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was the first book that came to my mind. And it was about a book I had forgotten. I could only remember that it had been very important to me, but I didn't know the particulars. So I reread it. Here's some of the reasons that I think A Tree Grows in Brooklyn struck a chord in me. Francie was poor, and so was I. I had not read books about poverty, extreme poverty at that time in my life. Francie and her mother and brother made up pretend scenarios to get them through days of no food. Sometimes they pretended to be on an Arctic exploration and had run out of food and would be rescued soon. I, too, pretended constantly to soothe myself and to balance what I was going through. I now know that I was exercising the right side of my brain, the creative side. In A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Francie's mother also made them save pennies and nickels, even when it meant they couldn't have things they wanted. This showed me that life doesn't just happen. You make the future happen. It taught me to take charge, to do the things that would make me happy and successful. The tree in the title refers to a ubiquitous tree that grows in the slums of Brooklyn. It grew in cracks, it grew out of the grates, and it was all over the place. It was successful. So this tree was clearly a symbol of Francie and became a symbol for me. Francie and her Brooklyn tree became the guiding light for me. I learned that there were other people like me who not only survived, but found a way to thrive. And now we'll stand to sing together Some Glad Morning I'll Fly Away. It's number 595 in your hymnal.
A few words before our benediction. It's one of those full weeks. So much has happened that has gotten under our skin and in our hearts and troubled us deeply. I hope we do not forget those things and continue to hold families and children in our hearts and minds. This weekend is also Memorial Day weekend, and there are those who have died in service to this country. I hope we do not forget them. And I hope we do not forget the books that have shaped us from our childhoods until today. Let us spend this time remembering. Jesus said to his disciples, "But you have God-blessed eyes, eyes that see, and God-blessed ears, ears that hear." I don't think he's talking about these orbs on the front of my face or the side of my head. He's talking about imagination. Hear these words as we prepare to leave this time, this place. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all persons. Honor all creation. Love and serve the living God. Rejoice in God's presence, however known. And may the love of God, the way of God, the light of God, with your blessed eyes and blessed ears, help you to imagine and to live a better way. Go in peace. Amen.